Hello everyone, I hope you're doing very well. This is week 6. We are cruising right along. We're getting closer and closer to meeting in person. I'm very excited for that. I hope you are as well. To meet in Chuncheon again. I haven't been there for quite a while. Now, your introduction videos, I'm going through them, providing notes and comments, and most of them pretty good, but I am trying to give you a good idea of how to improve and what parts of your videos you can improve on, that you can work on or try to figure it out. Now, this week, we're going to talk about interrupting, but before that, let's take a quick look about last week with the rebuttals, with the refutations. There's a lot of material in there about, with the presidential debates. Don't get overly stressed about them, but it's good practice for us to stay with, and it's part of the cornucopia of conversation, of being able to do that. So hopefully it's helpful to you, and the discussion portion is helpful as well. That is on e-class, so make sure you take care of that as well. Now, this week we're talking about interrupting, which we usually think as a rude thing to do, but we're going to talk about how it's not. We're talking about interrupting, but also what's called active listening, or tactical empathy, or reflective listening. There's some different words for it, different terms, and it's something that we usually do, that we often do quite naturally, but it is also something to be aware of. It's another tool in our tool belt of being human beings, of being teachers, of being empathetic, of trying to understand people and have people understand and feel, and feel like they can trust us, which is an important part of being a teacher, that students do trust us. We have to, and then we earn that trust, of course, and then we have to keep that trust. And this is one method that can help us, look like we're good listeners. But we're going to start with talking about interrupting. Let's dive in. Let's begin the main lecture then, talking about interrupting. What that means. Usually we think interrupting as a rude thing, but we'll get into that. It's really not. It's an important part of natural conversation. So far, with the time, delete that last part. 3, 2, 1. The most important part or thing to remember about interrupting when we're having a conversation is that we want to interrupt the person in order to create a connection with the person we're talking to. So we're not interrupting to say what we want to say. We're interrupting to create a communicative connection, a bridge with the other person. So that's why we think that, it's rude to interrupt if we're going to change the topic or disagree with the person before they've completely finished talking. But to interrupt to agree or to encourage them to talk, that is very nice. And it's something that people like. So if we interrupt politely and we're creating the connection with the other person, we're sharing our own interest and our own idea, our own experiences, and we're actively participating in the conversation. We're feeding, we're giving something for the speaker to work with, to feed off of, to keep going, and to stay interested in the conversation. So here's some good reasons to interrupt the conversation, to interrupt a person speaking. 1, to ask for clarification or greater detail about something. 2, to say we agree with the person. 3, to show interest or enthusiasm. Also to say like, oh yeah, you had something similar that you want to talk about later. And the most important thing we can say, if we decide to interrupt, be sure to interrupt politely. That's the nice thing. So let's take a look at these different examples. So interrupting to ask for clarification. So if we want the person we're talking to give a longer explanation or additional detail It's perfectly okay to interrupt to ask for clarification. This keeps the conversation on topic, and it shows that you're listening. Here are some useful phrases. Sorry, but could you go over that again? Or sorry, but would you mind repeating that? Or excuse me for interrupting, but I'm not sure I follow. Could you repeat that? Or, yeah, sorry for interrupting. I'm not sure what you mean. What was that again? And then also repeating an item from their conversation with a questioning intonation. So if they're talking about having a bad day at work, you say, a bad day at work? And they'll go in and talk about their bad day at work, giving more detail, going into longer explanations of what happened. The second case would be interrupting to agree with the other person, especially saying small talk. So small talk, of course, is what we would say is light conversations, another phrase. Things like television or books or podcasts or YouTubers and V-Birds and what are they called? What are the HoloLive, Miiverse, all those things kids do these days, what have you. They're not really important. But you say to agree with a person, and you're like, they're talking about their favorite podcast. And then you're like, yeah, you also listen to that podcast. This encourages them to keep talking. Some examples. I love that book. That last episode of Game of Thrones was so crazy. I think I should change that. I don't think you kids watched Game of Thrones. It's now old hat. I love kayaking in the summer. I also thought his latest book was disappointing. I know. I didn't understand what happened in the last show either. So if they're talking about personal experience, their personal emotions or feelings that you've also shared, we can use these expressions. I can totally relate. I've been there. I know exactly how you feel. That's happened to me. I know what you mean. That's so frustrating. I know what you mean. That's so challenging. I know what you mean. That's so nerve-wracking. So we're showing that we shared in that experience. Oh, I'll give an example. When I was younger, you're a young man and you give something to a young woman, and when you're a boy and you give something to a girl, a gift, and you're like, oh, now she's gonna like me, she's gonna talk to me, and that doesn't work out a lot. And I had a feeling of I've been there. This was years ago. I was teaching at a middle school in Seoul, and Pepero Day happened. And Pepero Day is a very important day for middle schoolers, as you might remember. And this girl gave me a big basket of Pepero. It was amazing. I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is so cool. And the girl's like, yeah, it's so nice. You're so kind, John teacher, la, 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 la. And then about 1 minute later, I saw this one boy in class who was angry and crying, but he was trying not to cry. But he had given the girl the big basket of Pepero, and then she had immediately given the basket to me because she really didn't like the boy. And I shared in that boy's experience. I could relate to that, and I've been in that same situation. It's very upsetting, but I got a basket of Pepero, so I was happy. I was on the other side of it in that case. So interjecting that we've had similar situations, similar experiences, shows that we have something in common with the other person, and we can talk about it in more detail. And the important thing about this is it creates connection during the conversation. Now, it's okay to disagree with people. It's perfectly fine. It's okay to have different opinions. As long as we're nice about it, as long as we're polite about things. If somebody says, I thought, for example, my wife enjoyed the television show Penthouse, and she watched definitely the first 2 seasons. Anyway, she really liked the first season a lot, and I did not. But I've learned I don't say, that show's stupid and you're stupid for watching it. No, you can't say that. You don't say that, especially to someone you have a relationship with. You have to be nice about that. You can say it's not your thing or things, but if you're talking about and you're disagreeing with someone about something, it's much more polite to wait until they're finished talking before sharing your contrasting opinion. Something, and that's advice for life. So next, interrupting to show interest and enthusiasm. And stop honking your horn. If you're in a conversation where the other person's mentioning something you're intrigued by, interested in, or enthusiastic about, you can interject a comment briefly to share your opinion. So this shows that you care about what the person's talking about. These are showing enthusiasm, showing interest, as in, I've been wanting to see that, or I haven't had a chance to read that yet, or, oh, I've been meaning to download that app, or I've been wondering how that is, or I've wanted to know how that works, or I'm curious how you handle that, or I'm interested in hearing more. So these brief interruptions help move the conversation forward and encourage the speaker to keep talking. This is, again, I've had experience where I'm talking about something and the other person does not respond, does not show interest, and so I feel like I should stop talking, which happens. So these interruptions help encourage a person. So if you're having a good conversation, you'll find that you relate to what the other person has said. If you want to share something similar, it's okay to say that they've sparked something in for you, and tell them more about it after they finish their anecdote, after they finish the story. So we say, that reminds me. Oh, I wanted to tell you about that. Let's come back to that. As you were saying, or that reminds me to tell you about my experience doing. And then they'll finish their story, and then you can tell your story. Now, be sure not to interrupt with a long story of your own, as this can distract the person from their main point, and it's not polite. So, with that, let's take a look at how we can be polite when interrupting. Some different words and phrases to help us. And these can also help us to not feel so timid, so shy about interrupting. So interruptions are an important part of active listening. And when we're together in person class, if that happens, COVID is being COVID, so we'll see. But as of right now, weeks 8, 9, and 10 coming up, I want to practice this active listening in person. But here are some polite phrases we could use. Sorry, I just wanted to say, see the word sorry or excuse me for interrupting. Can I add something? Can I say something? Can I ask a question? Before you continue, I'd just like to add. Or, I'd like to comment on that. I'd like to say something on that. I'd like to add something. I'd like to remind you. These are all nice, polite phrases we can use for interruptions. So all of these phrases show that you respect the other person's ideas and the other person, and you want to make sure it's okay. If you don't want to verbalize your interruption, you can raise one of your fingers or your hand a little bit, or lean forward with an enthusiastic smile. That's another possibility. Now, if you're worried about being rude, you can do two things to help minimize the impact of your interruption. Lead your interruption with a question or introductory phrase that shows the listener that you care about what they say. Or apologize for the interruption after you've asked your question. So it's what we call, it's kind of a hollow apology, but it shows that you're being polite. Remember, if we're interrupting with good intentions, that's good. As in, we're keeping the conversation going, we're engaging people. Tactical empathy. It's another expression. Here are some methods of interruption that have been proven to be very effective at getting people to keep talking. Chris Voss, he is a former FBI hostage negotiator, and he's now a motivational speaker, lecturer guy. But he gives lots of examples of effective listening and active listening, and the idea of, it sounds very harsh, tactical empathy. But we'll see what that means is when he was working with the FBI and there's a hostage situation, what he doesn't want to happen is for the hostages, the people being held by the guys with guns, he doesn't want people to get killed. And if the person is talking to him on the phone, they're not killing people. So keep them talking. And they're also distracted about what the other FBI guys are doing, because they have other people are doing other things, trying to sneak in and stuff. So here we have effective pauses. Now, effective pauses, this is something that's a bit, how should I say, counterintuitive. That the first technique of effective listening, of tactical empathy, is learning to be quiet and listen. So when we're listening to people, we have to pause. So we ask an open-ended question and then pause and let people answer. Let them talk. So open-ended questions are very nice because people will talk about themselves, and people usually do like to talk about themselves. But a lot of times, individuals will ask open-ended questions and then keep talking. So if we ask a question, we have to stop talking. This seems very, very obvious, right? It seems very obvious. But if you remember from last week, from last class, the video of President Trump and now President Biden, when they were going off on each other, did they give each other, they didn't let each other answer. They're like, answer the question, but they kept talking. So there's no actual chance to actually answer and listen. They weren't listening to each other. They're just barking at each other, effectively. So if we're going to be an effective listener and have effective interruptions, we need to actually stop talking sometimes. And that happens. We see that Donald Trump is a wonderful example in many, many cases of many things. And that he has a very hard time listening to other people because he likes talking. He likes hearing his own voice. He is Donald Trump. He loves being a superstar. So effective pauses lets the other person talk. And it's something that we have to teach ourselves if we're trying to get the other person to talk. The next technique is something called minimal encouragers. These are these small sounds, basically, that we say to keep the person talking. They fill in the silence, and they also let the person know that we're still paying attention. So sounds like, yes, okay. Oh, really? Whoa. These are all the small utterances that help encourage the other person to keep talking. It's important, though, that we don't overuse it, and I can show you an example.
Hey, Murph. Hey, Ronathan. I heard you're having trouble with your computer.
Yeah, thanks for coming down.
Okay, so what seems to be the problem?
So every time I try to get online, it's asking me for an admin password, but it shouldn't need a password to get onto the internet.
Sure.
And I should already have admin privileges on this computer.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Did you get all that?
Yeah, totally. So you need admin privileges?
No.
Yeah.
I already have admin privileges.
Oh, okay.
I just need to get on the internet. And
okay,
I shouldn't need admin privileges.
Yeah, got it.
I feel like you're not actually listening to me.
Yeah, sure.
Are you actually not listening to me, or are you saying that you get that it seems that way?
Totally, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, you need to stop that.
Okay, doing what?
You need to stop checking in with me so much saying yeah. You need to stop saying yeah.
What do you mean?
It seems like you're not listening and that you're just focusing on saying
no, that
got
makes
it
sense.
and everything. Like you took some kind of active listening class, but you're not actually paying attention.
Totally, yeah, no, I don't think so.
Then why did you disagree with me a million times while I said it?
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm just showing you that I'm listening to you. So you have a problem with your dog, is what I'm hearing?
No, you're clearly not listening to me. Just shut up.
Garrett,
Shut
sure.
up.
Okay.
Shut up.
Sure.
Shut up.
Sure.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Okay.
Shut up.
Okay, sure.
Shut up!
Okay.
Don't talk. Don't talk for a second.
Sure.
Sure.
Oh,
got you.
Totally.
Okay. If you're actually listening to me, why don't you tell me what I just said?
Sure. You said that when you try to get online, it keeps asking you for an admin password, which doesn't make any sense because you don't need that to get online, and you should be listed as an admin on this computer anyway. You asked if I was listening, I verified that you had admin privileges. Then you spend the next 2 minutes scrutinizing the way that I listen to you and my concern for your pets. Then you asked me to recap the conversation, which is where we are right now.
So you're gonna fix my computer?
Sure.
Mirroring is the third example, third technique. Mirroring is just taking the last few words of a person, they said, and repeating it back to them. That's it. That's all it is. This we think this is annoying, but if we do it in the flow of a conversation, people don't notice. It sounds like we're clarifying things, which is a good interruption. And so it's something here. If we don't, we won't notice, so it'll work well. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. So imagine you're telling someone that you're going to have about a difficult interaction you have to have at work. They're going to have to tell a subordinate, a worker, that they're going to have to fire them. Or criticize one of their subordinates. They say to you, "Oh man, I have to have this meeting with Bill, and I have to criticize his work. His work really hasn't been very good. I have to let him know, and I'm just dreading it." And you mirror this person saying, "Dreading it, wow." Or, "Dreading it, wow, that sounds awful." You're just repeating the last couple of words they said, and then you go on the conversation. This lets the other person know that you're listening, and they'll keep talking. And often, if we throw in the rising intonation, then there's a lot of sirens today. Goodness gracious. I hope everyone's okay. If you have a rising intonation, then they are going to interpret that as a question and give more detail. Because it sounds like you're asking for clarification, and they'll provide that clarification. It's a way of verbalizing empathy. Here's an example of mirroring.
Hours. Once you go under 6, you're starting to hit woo territory. But
that's where I'm at currently. Right at this moment, I'm in the woo territory where I'm having this conversation with you, but I want to let you know my periphery is a little fuzzy, and I just really want to go to bed.
Your periphery?
I'm like, what if I took a nap?
Your periphery?
Yeah, the sides of my vision are not focused. I'm in that state of awake where it's boy, I can function and I can do stuff and I can talk to you, but everything about my eyes is what if we closed? What if we just closed for a little bit? And then, what if we laid down though? That's where I'm at right now. I'm fine. Everything about me is working great, but my eyes are hey, what if we just took a nap? So that's my problem.
It sounds like you're sleep deprived.
I feel sleep deprived. Yes, you're absolutely right.
What if?
But it's weird because I'm not. It feels like I'm sleeping too much.
Sleeping too much?
Yes. I maybe it's because my days are now segmented into different portions. I'll go to bed at a normal time and then sleep a little bit during the day, and it could be just because I'm mentally exhausted with staying inside all the time and constantly wiping down stuff. Here's a great example. If I go to the grocery store, right, and I need to get, I don't know, a carton of milk, right? The other day I went and got my parents' milk and ground beef, right? So
right.
The process is literally all right, so I need to go get my gloves and my mask. All right, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I touched a bunch of stuff on the way down to my car. So before I touch my car, I'm going to sanitize my hands. All right, I got in the car. Now I'm going to put on my mask and my gloves as I go to the grocery store, get to the grocery store. I go outside, I like open the door, I'm outside, I have my gloves on and my mask, go get the groceries, and I get back to my car, and then before I open my car, I do the glove maneuver where you use one glove to get the other glove off, that kind of thing. And then I have a separate bag for those gloves that I then put them into and then, tie it up. And then I take my mask off so I don't touch the mask with my gloves. And then I sanitize my hands. And then I get in the car. And then I drive my ass back home, get out, grab all the groceries, go up to my apartment, re-sanitize, mess with the groceries. Then if it's like a plastic thing, wipe it down with like a sanitizing wipe and even the bags itself. So now I'm done messing with the bags. So then I wash my hand. Literally all that stuff is so exhausting that it's just like, I feel like I'm overwhelmed with the nonsense of just the times we live in. And it's just exhausting. And maybe that's it as well, where I'm just like, I hate this. I hate it. I, too, want to not do this anymore, but I'm going to keep doing it because it's the right thing to do, but it sucks.
I don't know if you realize, but my last 5 responses to you were FBI negotiation responses.
I didn't realize that. I was in my own world. That's the thing is you could have got me to give you a bunch of money.
That's what I realized because yesterday I was telling Toaster Woman, I was like, yeah, this FBI negotiation thing, it's cool. It does this thing. And she was like, does the thing. And I was like, yeah, like he does it. And I was like, oh my God, she just did it to me and I didn't even realize it. Like, that's how powerful this is. Because it's literally just, I just wanted to do it and see if you would realize it. And once I realized you didn't realize it, I was like, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, I didn't know. You got me.
It's also
you could have got me to give you my credit card number for all I know.
Your credit card number?
Yeah, it's
the other thing I learned from it is the tone of your voice. That was another big one because you could be like, "Oh, that's a good question," or like, "That's a good question."
Labeling is just naming people's feelings. So we're listening to this person, we're listening to their stories of what they're talking about, and we identify what they're feeling. Are they feeling joy, awe, happiness, regret, shame, guilt, fear? So they might correct you because you get it wrong. It doesn't matter, but they identify that you're trying to listen. But it's important that you don't get it very wrong. If they're telling you about their grandfather's funeral and intending it and how everyone was crying, you can't go, wow, you must have been very happy. That's very wrong. Don't do that. That'll upset the other person, rightfully so. Yeah, tomorrow is my grandfather's funeral, and so ready for a bunch of sadness there. But he was quite elderly, 101 years old. It's a fine age. Oh, I had a double read. Oh, paraphrasing. Technique 5, rather. Paraphrasing is related to mirroring. It's repeating back what the other person said, but not in their words. So you're not directly saying their own words. You're changing it up. You're summarizing what they said. So if you're using the words they said, that's mirroring. If you summarize it in your own words, that's paraphrasing. That's, I believe we've used paraphrasing. If I ask you to paraphrase a story, I'm asking you to tell it in your own words, to summarize in your own words, not to give a direct quotation. And next, summarizing. We combine paraphrasing and labeling. In your own words, you summarize the main point of what the other person's saying, and then you identify how they're feeling. The point is to let them know that you've been listening, you understand, and you want them to see if they can say, that's right. As in, they agree with your summarization and identification of what's going on. So that's what we really want them to say, want them to do. So tactical empathy is a powerful way for you to be an effective listener, to stay connected with your counterpart, with your conversational partner, and build a trusting, intimate relation with them and combine these different reflective listening techniques. We have active listening or reflective listening. They're the same thing, but people use different words. People will talk to you and tell you things that you won't believe because they'll keep talking to you and they'll feel like they've been listened and heard. That's very effective to have. That if people feel like when they talk to you, that they feel like you've listened. So students will appreciate that, coworkers appreciate that, partners will appreciate, everybody appreciates that. And that is a nice thing to be. All right, there we have it. That's the main lecture of that. I want to include a brief explanation, paraphrasing from that earlier example, the podcast with the two little cartoon guys. I want to include the setup of that, where the lower voice man, he explains how he learned about this method, and then later on, and we've heard that already, he attempts to use it on his co-host, and it works successfully. So I want to include that example, that setup as well.
And then I've been watching another masterclass because I got it for David Lynch, but now I'm just watching other masterclasses. And there's this really good one with this FBI negotiator, or like a former FBI negotiator, but like he pretty much teaches you about how to negotiate and talk and listen to people. And it's actually really interesting. There's a lot of things I would do anyway that I didn't even understand the science behind. And so he talked about how he like got a girl out of like a terrorist kidnapping in Iraq with Al-Qaeda. He talked about
I thought you were just about to be like how he got a girl, period. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, like
all right. Gentlemen, let me tell... I was like, Trendor, you did not go to a pickup thing. Where he's like, gentlemen, let me tell you how to get a girl. Compliment sandwich. Which, by the way, is the craziest. Every time I heard any like business class thing was always a compliment sandwich. Was that in this?
No, it was not.
I hate it. I hate it where it's like, say something nice, then say something mean, then say something nice.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Wait, what? I hate that. That's so messed up.
The biggest thing, which is actually just part of listening, I learned in psychology, is just mirroring. So, for example, he was giving a thing where he's like, someone had a hard day, and they're like, man, I just had a hard day at work. And you're like, you had a hard day at work? And they're like, yeah, I just was at work and someone was yelling at me and, it was just frustrating. And you're like, someone was yelling at you? And they're like, yeah, and it's like, it keeps it going. And it's such a like genuine type of reaction because it shows that you're listening, but they also have to respond with more details. I
know that it's supposed to be a genuine thing, but because I know what it is, it seems like skeezy.
In a way, it is. It's like, it's a sociopath. It can be a sociopathic tendency, but it's. It's what expert negotiators use. Like this guy used it in the FBI, so he knows what he's doing.
Sure, to manipulate idiots with guns. I'm very well aware.
Yeah, but it's like he's giving examples. He's like, this one guy went to a yoga retreat or some shit, and he's like, everybody there loved him, but he didn't. He literally knew nothing about it. They'd be like, oh my God, I love this yoga class. And he's like, you love the yoga class? We're like, yeah, it's great. They had so many things to do and blah, blah. And they had food. It was all organic. He's like, it's all organic? They're like, yeah, I'm eating healthier. I'm doing these things. By the end, he's like, everyone's like, wow, I love that guy. And they're like, do you know anything about him? And they're like, no.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's just one technique. Like, it's really interesting. Just kind of seeing the ways they negotiate and do all these things. And he does examples of it. So he'll do like a mirroring example, or he'll do like this other thing was like labeling, and he gave like these examples of how a certain part of the brain like shows activity whenever you label an emotion. So it's one of those things where they'll be like, oh, you look like, or it seems like you're upset, and you point it out, and they're like, yeah, I'm upset. And they're like, you're upset? And he's like, yeah, the guy's he cut me off in traffic. It's like, the cycle continues.
Right.
Or the other thing is
you're about to be a triple threat. I'm terrified of you. You're about to be like muscular and psychological, and also I don't know what the third thing is. A guy who's played a GameCube. That's triple threat.
Muscular, psychological, GameCube wizard.
Mm-hmm.
So you play a lot of GameCube games. Yeah, I love GameCube games. You love GameCube games? Yeah, like Paper Mario's.
You love Paper Mario?
Yeah, Paper Mario. What have you been doing? You said you're tired.
There we go. I think that context helps us a bit. And the Krindor is his name. Well, his screen name, his handle, as they call it. He used that method on his co-host, and he used those different techniques that we went over in class, and he got his co-host to talk more. Now, obviously, that's a conversational podcast. Your job is to keep talking, but you can see how one-sided that conversation was. He was just asking those questions and giving some, encouragement for his co-host to keep talking, to keep, giving information while giving nothing in return. But, that's you could call it the darker side of this method, but it is all very effective for us to use. Now this week, there'll be a short discussion question, but nothing too stressful. I'm going to add we'll have to add a little bit extra on at the end of this, but hopefully we're getting ready to meet in person, and we're getting ready to have a good old time. But stay safe. Hopefully you're all getting vaccinated or have gotten vaccinated. And we'll see each other again in week 7 as we continue on our journey. And we'll start talking about our first big project. Thank you very much. Have an excellent week. If you have any questions, please ask on eClass, and we'll see each other again next time. Thank you and goodbye.